Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Dr. Sophia ObGyn Podcast. I'm an ObGyn practicing for over 15 years in my native New York City, and I love to help women learn about their bodies, empower them, and embrace themselves. On this podcast, we talk openly and with heart about all things affecting women, from pregnancy, menopause, periods, sexual health, fertility, and so much more. Disclaimer: this is general medical information based on my professional opinion and experience. For specific medical advice, please refer to your physician. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Sophia ObGyn Podcast. As always, I am just so excited to be here with my co-host and good friend, Touseef Mirza.
Hi, everybody.
And we always get into these conversations that we end up bringing to you. And today is no different. I was expressing to Touseef about a few patients I had this week who came to me. One of them was recommended to me actually by her mother. And she hadn't had an exam, gone to the GYN in like 5 years. And let's say this woman was in her I want to say maybe early 30s. Mm. And she said, I asked her, I says, well, why haven't you been to the doctor in 5 years? And she says, I was just too scared. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, I was just too scared. The last time I went to the doctor, it was so painful. They just didn't listen to me. And so I was like, oh, I guess I'm not going back.
And when you say doctor, are you saying specifically an OBGYN or a PCP?
She had at the time gone to another GYN. And she said that the experience was just so traumatic that she just couldn't wrap her head around going back. It just didn't matter, the concept of annual exams or getting checkups and things like that, because she was just so fearful that every time she would go to the doctor that she was going to experience the same thing.
And is this something that happens often? Was this something that you don't hear as much?
So unfortunately, I actually hear this very often. But in her particular case, I was just like, I don't know. It just moved me to have a conversation about it because she was so I was just never going to go back. That was her answer to solving the issue. And then to see her in my office, because her mother had come to see me as a new patient and then had said, no, I'm telling you, talking to the daughter, it's going to be fine. You really need to see this woman. And
Dr. Sophia, she was talking about you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so I felt really honored, first of all, that her mother would recommend me and that she would actually show up. The daughter, and trust that she's going to have a different experience. I'm already super conscious of the care that I give and how I approach patients and how I talk to patients and how I examine patients. But, it just took it to a whole nother level, I guess. And I talked through with her just her past experience, her history, going through, all kinds of things with her in terms of finding out who she was. The one thing I said to her is that I'm just so sorry that you experienced that. It should never be that you have had so much trauma with a doctor that it makes you completely immobile almost in terms of seeking care in the future. And that really just resonated with me.
So you were basically apologizing on behalf of those that didn't took care of her properly.
Yes, because I needed to 100% validate what she'd experienced and let her know that we are going to work together to make sure that that's not what's going to happen in this particular situation. But I was so sad. I literally was like, I'm so sad that happened to you. And it just moved me emotionally to be like, what is going on? How is this even possible? We are healthcare providers. We are supposed to be caring.
Well, healthcare, the care is literally in the word.
In the word. And so the concept of healthcare bringing on trauma, I can go back hundreds of years, right, in terms of trauma, especially against women. But the fact that it was still happening like today was so disturbing for me.
So I think we need to like break that down, just the term medical trauma, in terms of what does that even mean in terms of trauma. So can you explain a little bit what she had experienced? Did she share that with you? That made her not go back to an OBGYN?
So specifically, she had gone for what we all routinely call the annual exam, which would encompass doing a pap smear and a pelvic exam. And with the pap smear, we typically have to insert a speculum, the instrument, in order to visualize the inside of the vagina and to visualize the cervix, which is where the test for the pap smear is actually happening.
And then the speculum is a long device that you put in to the vagina.
Yes, it is an instrument that we have to insert into the vagina in order to be able to see inside of the vagina. And the way she said, they just shoved it in. No warning, no. She's like, they just shoved it in. And I was just like, oh my God. In that moment, I felt her pain. That's the bottom line.
The thing also is, having gone to a lot of pap smears in my life, or the annual examination, it's such a vulnerable situation for a woman.
Yes.
To be lying down with her legs open.
Yes.
And then also a lot of people don't even feel comfortable being naked, especially showing, your whole vulva and vagina. And then so already we're kind of always a little bit on edge.
On edge. It's a heightened alert, situation.
Right. And so on top of that, if there is something that happens abruptly in already a high state of stress, that is what we call trauma.
I take nothing for granted in that situation because I recognize how traumatic it can be. You're meeting someone for the very first time, imagine. You're told to get undressed. You're expected to be naked in front of this person, showing your most private and intimate parts. And the whole situation has to happen within minutes. Mm-hmm. Under most conditions, this is a very short visit. And none of that falls short on me when I'm interacting with my patients because I feel that sense of vulnerability.
It's amazing that you're still feeling that sense of vulnerability after all these years. Like, you've been doing this for 15 years and you see, I don't know how many patients a day, but you still have that awareness and that compassion every single time.
I just always imagine myself in their shoes. I don't know. And I myself, I'm not kidding. I go to the gynecologist and I'm the person who's like up the bed. They have to keep telling me, okay, can you come back down? Can you come back down? And it's not because I've had some like major trauma experience per se, but yet still, I still feel very scared, vulnerable. Is this going to hurt me, the gynecologist? And I go to my friends. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to gynecologists that I know.
Right.
And still, they're like, okay, Sophia, are you gonna come down now?
So based on that, it basically means it's a completely natural and human reaction.
Yes.
To feel that way as
Absolutely.
A patient.
Absolutely.
So I think that's important to confirm with everybody.
I want every woman to know there is no version of going to the gynecologist that is fun, or that your reaction in feeling a sense of a little anxiety or angst or scared or exposed and vulnerable is 100% normal. It's part of why I like to describe over and over and over again the concept of the doctor-patient relationship. It's a relationship that we have to build on trust. And in that, I feel like we have to build into it. I really want my patients to trust that I'm not there to hurt them.
A couple of things there. So I think, and I completely agree with you when we say doctor-patient relationship, but that word relationship feels a little heavy. It's almost like we have more like relationships with our friends and our family. But when the doctor comes in, and especially if it's the first time, I feel sometimes we don't necessarily have a time to create relationship because that might take some time, but you can create a connection. You can create a human, genuine connection.
I think you're absolutely right about that. And quite frankly, when I say that we are building a relationship, it can be one that's built over time. And if you are coming to your doctor, your healthcare provider, there has to be some form of trust that's built. But I appreciate what you're saying in the sense of there's a connection that has to be there to allow you to kind of have some of that anxiety fall a little bit, to allow yourself to be examined, to allow yourself to be cared for. But on the flip side, the healthcare provider has to actually care and be invested in creating that type of connection so that way we can get to the point of being able to do the exam as well as to kind of understand why you're there, to get to the bottom of trying to help and heal.
I just want to come back for a second in terms of what we were talking about connection. And I was saying to myself, why am I saying that? So the first is because sometimes there's not a lot of time and so you're trying to forge a connection. Number two, personally, even I had to, because of different things in my life and because, the different insurances changed and I had to change doctors and systems a lot. Yeah. So sometimes it's hard to build a relationship over time. And I think, a lot of people are in that boat where things just change. And so you have to figure out, well, what do I do in this situation? And so to actually create a bar of connection, that I'm not just a number here that you shove it in, like the woman said, right? I'm not a number here. I'm a human being and you are a human being. Like, let's connect and talk.
On that human level.
On that human level.
Agreed.
Even if it is for, 3-4 minutes, but to really look them in the eye and talk about, how you're feeling. And especially if you're feeling fear. I mean, I'm so glad that you had the background for that woman. And so therefore, we'll talk about.
I asked.
You asked. Okay. But let's say a doctor doesn't ask. It's for the women then, unfortunately, have that responsibility to share that.
And I get it because I get that they will be afraid to say anything. I mean, we're talking about a system where, a doctor is looked at as this authority and you feel even afraid to say anything to them, in terms of that quote unquote paternalistic type of environment or system that's been created as far as medicine is concerned. So that's completely understandable. But as the patient, I would say that especially under the circumstances of a GYN exam that is so vulnerable, that is so exposed, it is so important to bring that level of humanness and to bring to the table, the forefront, exactly how you're feeling. So letting that healthcare provider know, I'm actually extremely scared, or I've had a really bad experience in the past. How can we try to do this better? Or do I really even need this? Even that. I feel like this is the area in which we have to be our own advocate all the time. And it's in stopping that person in the moment to say, I'm afraid, or this was my previous experience. And I'm so glad that not only did I ask, but that she was able to fully share with me what it was like. And yes, of course, I cringed, but then we were able to talk through it together as to what was going to be the next steps. Here's the thing. When the patient, she was in front of me and she was describing her experience, it already put me in a place of how can I give her a more positive experience. And maybe she didn't realize it, but she was advocating for herself by just giving me the information of what happened to her and how she felt. And then on my side, really having a strong desire to change the narrative for her on what it means to go to the doctor, on what it means to have a GYN exam, and even just explaining why we do what we do. Most women don't even understand why they're getting a pap smear in the first place. And so going through the steps, first of all, hearing her, listening, allowing her to express her sentiments, her feelings, her pain, what she's gone through, and then to be able to reassure her in the moment that we're going to work together, that these are the reasons why it's important for her to be examined in the first place, what a pap smear even is, and to show her even the instrument itself. I let her hold it. I said, okay, this is the speculum. This is the smallest one that I have. This is where we're going to start.
I don't think women know, like there's even different sizes when it comes to speculums.
Yes, there are, because we're all different. My preference is to always start with a small. Always, because if I can accomplish what I need to accomplish with the small, then I have an opportunity to make it the least uncomfortable as possible. That's always, for me, the goal. Most women don't even know what it is, what it looks like, And what's worse is that just historically, we used to use these metal speculums that were rather large.
I remember those.
And feeling like it's super cold.
And now they are.
Well, I always use plastic for almost every scenario, and a lot of lube so that the opportunity is there for the speculum itself to be able to slide inside of the vagina as gently as possible. But it was in the talking through, I think. I asked her, I says, well, what are some of the things that calm you down? How are ways in which you and your body, know how to just kind of do your best to kind of relax yourself or bring yourself to a more calm state? And I said, would you like us to play music? Do you want to do some breathing exercises? And to go through that and allow her to get to the point where she can regulate what she's going through in herself. But we have to give her time to do that. And I see how probably a lot of my colleagues don't, we're not given this kind of time
to settle,
to just allow people to settle. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that that's the system of medicine in which we are working in. But I don't let it define me. We have to be able to care. It's the whole point.
So then with this woman, she's expressed to you that she had a bad experience. She explained to you what it was. You give her the time to settle. When it comes the time for the actual examination, what are things that you do? I know you said you use a smaller speculum, but also in the pace. Do you change your pace to accommodate?
For the most part, I'm always going slow because in the sense of I'm usually talking to the patients anyway, expressing to them, is it okay that I touch you now? This is what you're going to feel. This is the next step. I'm going to place the speculum now. I expect that you'll feel a lot of pressure. And then in the moment, okay, are you feeling pressure or is this painful? Can I continue?
So continuous communication.
Continuous communication. So that way, even if it's just 3 seconds, to accommodate and to know, okay, this is what's going to come next, and to be okay with what's happening. And we were able to get through the exam. And then at the end of it, she said, wow, I've just never had this experience before. And thank you so much. And I walked away from that experience knowing that I at least have changed her perception of what the exam is supposed to be like, and to take away some of that fear, the kind of fear that held her back from even going to a doctor in 5 years.
I think this is really important so that people actually understand how good care actually is. Because it's possible that you've been through different exams, OBGYN exams with different doctors, and you haven't had that type of experience, and maybe you think, well, that's just the way it is. So I think by us having this conversation is to actually say, no, this is not actually the way that it is. So even if, some women out there who are saying to themselves, that's great, we're happy that there's some doctors that are like that, but that hasn't been my experience and I can't find one. Or I just always thought that this was just the way that it was. And so, and I just go in and, they stick it in, they get it out, done. And then you leave. And that's just the way it is. And so I think by having this conversation, we're saying, well, no, actually caring means more than that.
Yes, of course, we need to get through the exam, but how we get through the exam is a part of the care. I don't want my patients to walk away from the experience with me feeling traumatized. That just doesn't sit well with me at all. And granted, there are times that I have to do procedures on patients that are very painful. I may do my best to try to mitigate that, but I guess I like to call it Verbicaine. Okay, meaning the way that we talk to our patients and the way that we communicate with the person on the other end, the receiving end, is going to dictate how they see and view that experience. And even if it does cause a level of discomfort and pain, that doesn't mean that it needs to be quote unquote traumatic. There's two different things.
Pain is not trauma.
Pain does not equate trauma.
Necessarily.
Exactly.
So I think it's great that, what we're talking about, what you bring to the table and how other OBGYNs and doctors should be taking more time and really looking at the person as a human and talking through them and having the communication. But sometimes, unfortunately, the patient doesn't have control over that, right? Because we're the patient coming in. What are certain things that we can do as patients to almost stop them in their tracks and make them listen to us? And recognize, I'm not just a number here and I'm having some difficulty here.
I really think the first thing comes with expressing that right at the beginning of the exam, of the beginning of the interaction. So for me, it starts with introducing yourself.
So hi, I'm Touseef.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice to meet you. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for taking care of me. I'd like to just let you know that I am very nervous, very scared about this exam, and these are the reasons why. Can we move forward in a way that I'll be able to get through this? And then ask, what are some of the ways that you think I can do this, that we can do this together that's going to be a little bit better?
So I think also, by you saying that, it also requires a level of vulnerability to even say,
I know.
I'm scared.
I know.
Right? We have trouble saying that to ourselves.
It's true.
And now we're saying that to a person.
Someone else.
We just met that person like a minute ago. Okay. And now we're going to put our most vulnerable selves completely exposed. It wasn't for an OBGYN, but when I was talking with you, and I was actually scared to go back to do a mammogram, remember?
Oh, yeah.
I was scared of doing a mammogram. And I said, oh my God, I don't want to do a mammogram, but I know I have to do a mammogram. And the first time it was painful. And so I was like, I don't want to go, but I have to go. And so I put it off, the literally the patient that you're talking about.
Yes.
And I'm like, what? The machine is the machine. How does that change? And so, that's the machine that's actually doing the test. It's not even a person at that point. And I remember you told me, just tell her that you had a bad experience. And, if there's anything that she can do. And I was like, okay, it's worth a shot at this point, or else I got nothing. I mean, already I'm nervous. And now I feel even more raw, because now I have to tell her
that you're scared,
that I'm scared.
That it's gonna be painful.
And I'm a pretty strong person. I'm confident. I go out in the world, I do stuff. And now I have to tell this person that I've just met, I had a really bad experience. I'm scared. It was painful, but I did. But, it wasn't easy, even just that part. But I was just like, I would rather say that than go through the pain. If there's anything that I can do for myself, I will. I asked her, I said, like what I just said. And then I said, if there's anything that you can do that could possibly even alleviate some of the pain, whatever that is, because I don't know what that is, I would really appreciate it.
Yeah.
That's what I told her. And then she said, okay, I'll try my best. Like, let's work together. And I made the connection, the connection
Yes,
we talked
the
about.
connection, yes.
Like she looked me in the eyes, I looked her in the eyes, and I literally said, thank you in advance. Thank you for helping me. So I was just like, I want all the chips on my side because God knows I need it. And it was actually less painful. And I'm not just saying that because we're talking about this right now. It was actually that. And I thanked her at the end. And she kept communicating with me. And there was a level of comfort knowing that in the best way possible, she was trying to have my back.
Right.
Or my breast. In this situation. And that's all to say that even if it's difficult, even if they're not doing, and now all the onus is on you, but it's your body, right? Like,
Yeah.
I still want to try not to have pain, but I know that it's going to be, but how can we mitigate as much as possible?
Yeah.
And next time I will say that again.
You can start psyching yourself up or start having that open communication from the first person who sees you. So sometimes it's my assistant who comes to me and who says, okay, Dr. Lubin, this patient, this is her first time seeing an OBGYN, or this is her first pap smear. And already that puts me in a zone. Even express to the medical assistant or that person who comes in to take your vital signs. Just because it doesn't have that same feeling or level of authority, perhaps, or
the person who's actually
doing the person who's actually going to be doing the exam versus the person who comes in and says, hey, how are you? I'm just here to take your vital signs. You don't check your blood pressure, your temperature. And maybe sometimes that's the person who is a little bit easier to start the communication with, to kind of start grounding you in that feeling of saying, I'm a little bit nervous about what's going to happen here. Or to express to them, hey, can you let the doctor know, the nurse know, the healthcare provider know that this is going to be my first time, or whatever the situation. But maybe that's the first line, because they can go back and tell the person who's going to be working with you, hey, the patient is already, nervous, scared, or has had a situation or whatever. So then now when the physician comes into the room, again, we can start that dialogue, and maybe it already puts you at a little bit more ease because you know that you've already advocated for yourself from the get-go.
So basically just communicate to anybody.
And let's just start it.
Yeah. And just over again with a new person.
Yes.
That's all good.
The more you express, the more we know about you. I think it's the more you bring us also down to that feeling so that we can come with a more human response.
Right. If there is capacity of the person to do that, right?
Of course.
Right?
I can't speak for everyone.
Right. So
I 100% cannot speak for everyone, but at least we can try.
Exactly. So I think, for me, the biggest takeaway is we can't, this is the saying is we can't control the world around us. We can control ourselves and how we react to it.
Yeah.
That's the only control we have. And so best case scenario, we have somebody like Dr. Sophia, right? That comes in, that's already in the right mindset, that's really caring for the person.
Yes.
You still communicate as you would otherwise.
Yes.
And the worst case scenario, you have to advocate for yourself like over and over again and trying to build that connection with the other person. And if unfortunately that fails, at least you've done everything that you could.
And I like to stress that point because then you can feel like you've at least trusted yourself And so you can walk away from this situation knowing that you have done all you can.
Or a sense of, not of release, but just to know, well, I did everything I could.
I did everything I could.
I didn't know that I could say that type of stuff to the person with the memory. I'm just like, okay, it's just going to be painful because that's just what it is. I didn't know that I actually have the right.
The right, yes.
The right to
right
actually
to say,
come and say, can you do anything? We're talking about care, and we're talking about, yes, the patient needs to have that responsibility. And also the onus is on the healthcare provider. But how do we actually cultivate that even further to make HCPs be more caring? I know you are starting like from the get-go from your students.
It's interesting you mentioned the concept of just caring, right? And so for me, it's to embrace every single experience with a patient from a caring standpoint. And it's something that is so ingrained in me that I try my best to translate it, like show it and teach it. I have the privilege of being able to teach medical students right now. And so I even tell them from the jump, the point of the rotation with me is for you to learn how to care for patients. Even if it means that you didn't grasp everything about gynecology.
From a medical, technical
clinical standpoint. Instead, I just want you to firstly learn how to care for patients. Because the medicine you can learn.
And so what does that mean, care for patients, when you're telling that to them?
How to interact, how to give that patient the utmost respect and dignity. How do you interact and communicate with the patient? How do you always try to meet them where they are? How do you talk with them so that you're not in some lofty position or taking or coming from an egotistical way? The start is introduce yourself. The start is, can I touch you? When you go to see a patient, that you ask for permission to examine them.
Not just go for it.
No. For my students, it's part of the curriculum that they listen literally to episode number 8.
Episode 8 of the Dr. Sophia ObGyn podcast, which is literally,
Can I touch you? It remains my favorite because it brings back that concept of care, respect, dignity.
Because when you're saying, can I touch you? The other person actually has to say yes or no.
That's correct.
That's part of the interaction.
Yes. And quite frankly, if they say no, then we say, okay. And that can at least open up a dialogue. Why? Are you afraid? Are you fearful? Is it painful? Are you in pain right now? Is that area that I'm asking to touch, is that the area that is hurting you right now? Let's go through that. And that can open up another series of conversation. And then maybe we can say, okay, well, maybe not today. Maybe we'll have you come back in a week. Maybe the woman is on her period.
Or maybe she's just having a really crappy day.
Or maybe she's just having a really bad day.
And this is like the last straw. Like she thought she could handle it, but now when the rubber meets the road, it's just like, you know what?
I can't do this today. Yeah.
It's too much.
It's just too much.
But this is why this episode is so important. The same thing as, I didn't know I had the right to say, can you go slower? Because it's painful. And I think we need to open up that conversation and actually say, just because that's what you thought doesn't mean that that is the truth, that there's actually a more humane way to do this.
I get that there's a really bad history in medicine, but we don't have to perpetuate it. And that's coming from the healthcare provider standpoint, and from the patient standpoint, you don't have to stand for it. This is 2026. We have to be able to do better as healthcare providers, for sure. And then from a patient perspective, it's not a matter of having to do better, but rather becoming your best friend. And you treat yourself the way you would if it was your best friend. And you would say what you would tell your best friend. Ask for what you need. Say what you're really feeling. And be like, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. And when I say that, I mean you're here for yourself.
Yes.
You are there for you.
Loving yourself is a journey. right? Like it's some people have access to that and some people don't. And yes, that is the ultimate journey of self-acceptance and loving ourselves. I also just think that if you're not there, because for some people they're on the journey, the facts is that this is something you don't like because of XYZ reasons, whatever they are, and you need to express them, period. That it shouldn't just be, okay, I guess, the part that you were saying, if you're feeling them, if you're thinking them, communicate them. Can we start there? Can we start with, if you're feeling them, if your intuition is saying something, if physically something's happening, emotionally something's happened, can we just give ourselves the permission to just express it with kindness, with openness, so that the other person can hopefully receive it in the best way possible as well, right? It's a two-way street.
It's a two-way street.
The connection is a two-way street.
But let me tell you, I'm happy to do this episode to speak specifically, even not just to the patients and the women, aside from being able to validate what they have been through and what they go through, but to speak to my colleagues, to speak to my other healthcare providers, whether you're a doctor, a nurse practitioner, a midwife, the other people who take care of women. I'm really here to say we have to take ownership of how we care in healthcare. It's part of the word. We need to bring the caring part, the empathy part, the compassionate part into every interaction that we have with women, especially in vulnerable states.
You talk about care and compassion and dignity, and I think this is so needed, especially in healthcare. And you're saying that that's something that you've always embodied.
Yes.
So where does that come from?
I just knew you were going to go there today, Touseef.
You know it.
So, little story. Today, when we come in to do our thing here on the podcast, I had this amazing thing that happened, which was that my grandmother's cake was here for me. And it helped me to reflect and remember so much of my grandmother who passed away. But it just so happens it's going to be my birthday week. It just so happens that I have some of my cousins who have been channeling my grandmother, and specifically the birthday cake, because it was the thing that she did for us as kids, grandkids, for our birthdays, no matter what. Mostly because my grandmother really didn't, immigrant story, didn't have much money, but the way that she showed us love was always with food and always reflecting and remembering our birthdays. And it helped me to reflect on my grandmother and how she has completely shaped who I am. And I'll tell you that the one thing is the way my grandmother cared. She showed care to not just us, her family, but to everyone.
How did she do that?
Well, for us, for sure, like the birthday cake situation is like, she remembered everybody's birthday and she made a cake for everyone. But, and that's a lot. She has 47 grandkids.
That is a
grands, great grands.
That's like almost once a week.
Yeah, for real, right? A lot of us. But part of the way I saw my grandmother showing care was it didn't matter that she lived in this 2-bedroom apartment and had 6 children to care for at that time. My grandmother has 7 children, but in the moment, having 6 kids, grandkids that come through all the time, but other family members. And her house was always open, always, not just to feed you, but if you needed a place to stay, if you needed clothing or a little extra money or whatever. And she didn't have very much, but she would give you her last. And she understood that caring, just showing kindness and empathy went so much further than physical gifts. And I think for me, there's a definite spirit of my grandmother that lives in me in that way, that empathy, that I can just meet you where you are and help you and show you kindness.
Because that's the most important thing.
Because that's the most important thing. So in my interactions, whether it's with my friends, my family, or my patients, and I think going into the interactions and my encounters like that has helped me to do my best. And I can't say that it's 100%. I don't know. But I certainly try to show up with that level of compassion and that level of caring.
I just thought it was just so fitting as we were pulling all the different aspects for this episode. And then your grandma came into the fold and everything was like in alignment. And I said, we have to like put this all together because everything is interconnected, right? Everything isn't, I mean, we talk about connection. We literally talked about connection.
That's true.
Like this is like even going further than that, but it's still a layer of connection. And so we wanted to dedicate this episode to your grandmother.
I really thank you for that, because what my grandmother means to me and the way that I'm able to show up and be reminded of who she was in my life is exactly in the way that I take care of people.
She's in you.
That she is. And I'm embracing every part of that.
So thank you to your amazing grandmother. Thank you to you for being such an amazing, caring person. And a big happy birthday.
Thank you, friend. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here on the Dr. Sophia ObGyn Podcast. I just feel incredibly blessed to have you as part of our community, to be able to share here, even through this podcast. I hope you feel loved and cared for. Embrace your body. Embrace yourself. Bye for now.
Bye.
This is general medical information based on my professional opinion and experience. For specific medical advice, please refer to your physician. Until next time, embrace your body, embrace yourself.